Good morning. I am Maya David from University of Malaya, and I would like to share with you some of the work of young Indigenous people in Malaysia. But first, to just provide you a little bit of the background of the Indigenous people in Malaysia. We have West Malaysia and East Malaysia, so the orang asli of Indigenous people in Malaysia is very diverse. There are officially 19 ethnic subgroups. They are classed as Negrito, Senoi or Proto-Malay in Peninsular Malaysia. But in East Malaysia, we have 64 indigenous groups. That is around 39 in Sabah and 25 in Sarawak. In East Malaysia, they are known as orang asal, whereas in Peninsular Malaysia, they are known as orang asli. And in East Malaysia, they make up 60% of Sabah's population and 50% of Sarawak's population, the two states in East Malaysia. The three largest indigenous groups in Sabah are the Kadazan Dusun, the Bajau, and the Murut. Moving on to indigenous youth in Malaysia, youth are deemed to be youth if they are between 15 to 30 years of age. Youth, of course, bring with them a great deal of incredible drive and commitment to change things for the better. So it's important to utilize young people's potential as powerful agents of change. In Malaysia, out of a population of about 36 million, we have about 200,000 indigenous people belonging to different communities. Let me now move on to showcase some of the work done by Malaysian Indigenous youth. Much of the work that the youth do is through social media like YouTube, Facebook, and so on. Indigenous youth as agents of change. I'm going to share with you a YouTube movie done by the indigenous people of Peninsular Malaysia, and in a series of movies entitled Apa Kata Wanita Orang Asli, or in English, What Do Indigenous Women Say? And specifically in one of these movies called Apa Kata Orang Asli, What Do the Indigenous Say? They showcase three films called Roots of My Land, Scent of the Forest Garden, and The Forest My Clinic. The movie was made by indigenous youth of Peninsular Malaysia from the Termai, Senai, and Jakun communities, three of the many indigenous communities. It was filmed mainly by young women showcasing discrimination, showing their lifestyles, the alienation of their lands. They discuss these issues not in their heritage language, unfortunately, but in Malay, the national language. But in the movies, we have an English translation. I will discuss these movies. In Roots of My Land, they provide examples of land encroachment when there was absolutely no discussion with members of their community. Outsiders just came and claimed their land as theirs. When the land is taken, they tell us, they lose their forests and natural habitat. The Forest My Clinic, in the second movie, they explain how important the forest is to them. It provides them with a livelihood as they can make handicrafts from the plants and from the flora and fauna they collect. In addition, they can make traditional medicine. These home-based medicines based on traditional knowledge is important in many villages which are far from hospitals, and such traditional medicine at times tends to save life while awaiting transportation to the hospitals. The movies are to make people aware of the predicament that they face. Their lands and forests are being taken away. They argue if they, the youth themselves, explain through such media channels these issues, the discrimination towards them may be lowered, and they request moral support from viewers. They say, and I quote, they say it in Malay, but I'm translating in English, "We need to do our own films. Our voice digs deep into our own issues, and we have to fight for our own rights. Movies made by others don't show our lived realities." In the third movie, which I will not discuss because it's just an animated movie which was filmed during the pandemic. Incidentally, we are shown another indigenous community in the movie, and this other community live in another state where the filmmakers visited. And we are shown a community that lives not near the borders of towns or villages, but in the recesses of the forest where there is no electricity, although homes have been built. As awareness of the differences in lifestyles between the various indigenous groups becomes clear through this movie. So this YouTube video was shown during the Native Spring Film Festival in 2021 and produced by the young indigenous with the help of some social activists. The second thing I would like to discuss is a podcast. This is a podcast by BF Malaysia, a radio station. In an interview with a language activist, we are told that two young members of an indigenous community known as the Khemlani community had accompanied the activist delegation to COP27, where the focus was outcome for youth, civil society, and indigenous people. Although the voices of these two young Khemlani was not heard, their presence at an international meet in Paris would have opened their eyes to a larger world beyond their villages. And such awareness to these young people, they could bring back and share with other members of their community. In the third issue I would like to discuss, many young indigenous people have moved to the cities to find employment. They don't have much education and their incomes are low, and they face numerous problems in the cities. Their predicament is shown in photos which are published in a book entitled Malaysian Indigenous Youth in the City. This collection of photos is part of a project that aims at raising awareness about and creating understanding of the situation of indigenous youth living in cities by offering young indigenous city dwellers a virtual and visual forum for intercontinental and intergenerational exchange. The participants of the project, of the photo project, received training in digital photography, and the project is jointly funded with other countries and members from different countries like India, Thailand, Bolivia, and Brazil. And this was done between 2008 and 2009. So during the workshops, indigenous youth were invited to discuss their situation and perspectives as young indigenous people living in cities. With the photos actually tells powerful stories of life in rapid transition and how identities are being shaped and reshaped in the cities. in conclusion, youth are increasingly using social media platforms such as YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, WhatsApp. They make videos and develop their own communities and bring an awareness of what is happening with land encroachment, losing their homes and their forests. If the youth of other indigenous groups also provide such movies of the erosion of their lands and forests and the effect of such loss in life, perhaps with a consensus of views, the state governments will pay heed to the voices of the indigenous young people and not support developers who want to take the lands away from the indigenous people. Thank you so much.